to the Vocal Fries Podcast, the podcast about linguistic discrimination.
I'm Megan Figueroa.
And I'm Carrie Gillen.
Hey!
Hey.
What? You think that was a false happy hey?
Yeah.
I mean, the world isn't falling apart?
I think we should just say, it feels like World War III is upon us. I mean, who knows how people will react, but pretty shitty that Trump just unilaterally bombed Iran.
I got an email from AOC immediately after, and it really sounds like she's gonna file articles of impeachment.
Which is good. It needs to happen. I know it won't do anything, but it needs to happen.
Yeah, I mean, there needs to be someone who's doing something like that. Yeah, I saw like a meme already on the internet that was like, Americans, we just bombed Iran. And then it said me. And it was like, I didn't do a fucking thing. It's like, yeah, exactly. Like, I didn't vote for this.
No, but America did.
Yeah.
He won. Fair and square.
About that. No, I'm just kidding.
The election system is too decentralized to really steal. Like, yeah. Like maybe like one or two locations.
Counties, yeah. But a couple counties, maybe.
No. He won. By a lot.
He won because we're a country of dirtbags.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I do think inflation played a role because everybody voted against the incumbent until him. And then after him, people were like, maybe the incumbent's not so bad. We don't want a Trumper.
Yeah.
For the most part. There's been one or two countries that have still gone the other way. But anyway.
Yeah. But yeah, I hope everyone stays safe out there.
I just hope that calmer heads prevail, but I don't know. I still see how this works. Anyways.
Yeah.
So I'm overdue. I meant to read this email sent to us from Rand, and it was about Puerto Rico statehood, and this is what Rand says. I was just listening to your latest podcast, which was a few ago now, and you were talking about Puerto Rico. They've actually had multiple referendums in which the people have voted for statehood. I won't call myself an expert, but per some of my friends from there is a belief that Congress won't vote since it would mean 2 more Senate seats that would likely be Democratic, and the island would be eligible for more financial benefits that Congress doesn't want to pay. And I agree. I agree that those are likely considerations. But yeah, I don't think Congress would vote for it, especially right now.
No, not right now. No. You're right. It would be 2 Democratic seats.
Not that I don't think that's enough. At this
No,
point,
it's not enough. Again, we are a country of dirtbags.
Oh boy, now I have teenage dirtbag in my head.
Oh, yes.
Speaking of music, this whole episode is about Eurovision, and I thought it would be nice to at least just chat about what we have discovered in the meantime since recording this, which was a while ago now, actually.
It was a while ago. Yeah.
There's some controversies from this year's Eurovision as well that we could talk about, but maybe let's talk about our favorites that we found from any time in Eurovision, which is a very long time.
Such a long time. What, like the 70s?
No, longer ago than that.
Oh,
remember?
Yes. Now it was a long time ago we talked to.
Yes.
I think I'm just like the 70s because that's when ABBA did Waterloo.
Yes. At least the 50s, because there's one of the most famous songs that ever came out of... In fact, maybe the most famous song that came out of Eurovision is from 58, from Italy. It's now called Volare.
Okay.
Volare. Oh.
Okay, that sounds kind of familiar.
Yes. Yeah? Dean Martin sang it, David Bowie sang it. Like, it's a very popular song.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah, so...
That's two way different sounding people, too.
Mm-hmm.
That's really cool. I'll have to listen to both the versions.
Yes, plus the original. I'll send you the link. Actually, I can send it to you right now.
Yeah.
Where I got it from. So if you scroll down to almost the bottom, because ABBA's number 1, just because, obviously, this is a song that everybody knows, but...
Oh, yeah. Oh, look at him!
Mm-hmm. Anyway...
This Italian ditty.
It's an Italian ditty. I mean, it is an Italian ditty, yeah.
Oh, hey, mine's on this list. Mine's number 10 on this list of 20 best Eurovision songs of all time. I really enjoyed Lorraine, Euphoria. She's from Sweden in 2012. I really enjoyed her energy, and this song like gets stuck in your head.
Yeah, that one is it's a good one. It's definitely yeah, it's a fun one.
Yeah. Oh hey, do I see yours?
Yes. So mine is a fairly ridiculous one, but I just really enjoy it. Think About Things by Dawi Freyr, I don't know, from Iceland in 2020, which apparently everyone thought was going to win. It was the favorite to win 2020, but obviously everything got shut down, so it just didn't happen at all. So, and then the next year everyone had different songs, so I didn't get a chance.
That band wasn't back, were they?
I doubt it. They usually have different everything, different songs, different performers,
different location.
It's definitely in a different location, yeah. Although I don't know what happened that year because of 2020, there was no winner. Then would they have gone back to the same place?
Maybe.
Probably.
Yeah. I enjoy your favorite too. It's like I was saying off mic before we got on. It is so much more like aesthetically pleasing and like fun to watch than American Idol. And you said they're two different kinds of shows, but yeah, that's true. American Idol seems kind of boring compared to this. Although it is fun to hear how good people are at singing. It's always really impressive.
Yeah, it's definitely impressive. But yeah, it's more about the person performing as opposed to like, you're representing an entire nation with this song, right? It's just a very different thing.
Yeah. Yeah, that would definitely bring a different vibe.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. Going through this list, which is just like, you know, some UK list. So it's very UK focused and heavy.
Right.
But there's this song by Lulu, Boom Bang Bang, from the UK, which I recognized as I was listening, and I was like, oh, okay, I guess some Eurovision songs made it to my consciousness besides ABBA. I mean, when I was younger. And then Brotherhood of Man, Save Your Kisses for Me. I definitely knew that song. Like, oh, okay.
You didn't know it was a Eurovision song?
I had no clue. And then Congratulations by Cliff Richard from 1968, not the winner, but I guess runner-up, also seemed very familiar to me. So there's just like this whole group of songs that the only reason why I must know them, I don't think they were popular enough to be on the air while I was alive, but my dad had the top, I don't know, 50 songs of every year on cassette tapes. Like, he made these tapes.
He made them?
He made them. So he worked for CBC, and they had this huge library of vinyl. Huge. And so he just went through and, like, transferred the audio from the vinyl to a cassette tape. So we would drive around the province in our car listening to these tapes. It's like, what year do we want to listen to this time?
That is so amazing.
I know.
I'm like picturing myself as a tween, like making mixtapes right now, and imagining your dad doing it in like this fortress of like all this like recording equipment and vinyl. And...
Yes. Very different from the way we were doing it as children, yes.
Yeah.
More professional.
More professional. A lot easier than waiting for it to come on the radio.
Oh my god, I know. Oh, just like wait and like record. Yep. Oh my god.
Kids these days have no idea.
They have no idea. No idea. When I was a kid too, I would make radio shows. And so I would have like fake ads. It was a whole thing.
Oh my god. Did you interview your sister?
Probably.
Yeah.
We interviewed all three of us probably. I don't remember that aspect. I just remember like we had to have music, we had to have ads. Which is bizarre because my dad worked at CBC. There were no ads.
Yeah, why did you come up with that part?
I guess because if you were doing a more music-focused thing, most of that was on the commercial radio as opposed to public. But anyways, but anyway, one last thing before we get to the episode. There were a couple of controversies. The Malta song, the title was Serving Kant, I think that was how it would be pronounced, Kant. Which I guess means serving singing. Mm-hmm. but it sounds like serving cunt.
Sure does. It really does.
So they had to just like take out the cunt part and just have serving. And actually, it's a pretty entertaining song.
Is it a group or a person who did it?
It's a person, yeah.
A person? Okay.
Yeah. Let's see, what's her name? Mariana Conte, I think.
Okay. And so it's in Maltese, I'm guessing.
No. Well.
Oh, no.
I think it's all English. I just watched it. I think it's all in English. Maybe there's some Maltese in there. Don't think so, but maybe. Oh, I guess the Kant would be. That part would be. But everything else I think was English. Maybe I'm misremembering. And then the Estonian entry. Oh my god. Okay, the song is called Espresso Macchiato, and it is also very entertaining, but holy shit, is it like infused with Italian stereotypes.
Oh
no! Yeah, so people were mad. They're saying Tommy Cash should come to Italy to see how decent people really work before daring to write such a stupid and stereotypical song.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it is. Like, it is over the top, but I was thinking Americans would be even worse. They would make it even more stereotypical, in my opinion.
All right. I can call those dirtbags, but you can't. No, it's true. It's true.
Yeah, so they're both of those songs are in here if you want to watch them at some point. But
yes,
anyway,
I'll definitely have to.
I think you'll enjoy the serving one and the Maltese one, and the Estonian one is also entertaining, but it is, yeah, it's not great.
Yeah,
and it's weird. Like, you're representing Estonia, and your representation of Estonia is mocking a different country. Weird.
It's really weird.
Weird.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So.
Ooh, the Malta one looks fun.
It is fun. I think you'll enjoy it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't super enjoy the winner of this year. Did you see it?
No. This just happened like in February, March?
No, it's more recent.
Not too long ago.
It wasn't that long ago. I can't remember exactly when. Anyway, I did not super enjoy it. So,
it happens.
It happens. And so I'll post the two things that we're talking about today so you can also listen to any of the songs. There's so many more than are not in these two lists, but
yes.
But yeah.
Treat yourself to some of these songs.
Yes. Oh well, enjoy.
Enjoy.
Okay, so today we're very excited to have two guests with us today. We have Paulette Vandervoot, who's a PhD student at Language Teaching and Learning at the Department of Language Studies at the University of Umeå. She has a background within both linguistics and Indigenous studies, which she combines in her current PhD project. Her research is about the different ways we can design curricula for education in Indigenous languages. So that's very exciting. And we also have Martina Tarazano, who is a PhD candidate in linguistics and gender studies, also at the University of Umeå. Her project focuses on HIV/AIDS representation in Swedish mainstream and queer magazines. But today we have them on to talk about their course called Linguistics and the Eurovision Song Contest, which is a linguistic perspective on the Eurovision Song Contest by introducing European language policy, discourse analysis, multilingualism, and metaphor. So welcome.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's very exciting. Keep in mind that most of a big chunk of our audience is in the United States, and not all Americans are aware. So what is Eurovision?
It's a song contest, but it's much more than a song contest. It's one of the largest live media events in the world. It has about the same number of viewers of the Super Bowl, to make an American reference here. However, it is a stage where language decisions are made, and that is not the case for many of these other super events, or mega events. So You can make language choices regarding the songs, so in what language you sing, but you can also there are also made language choices regarding which language the hosts are speaking and in which language the points are given by each country. So there are made many different language decisions at this really big stage.
So the hosts will speak different languages?
They have to speak English and French. That is like in the rules, but they can also talk a bit in their language of the host country or in other languages.
Okay, very cool. Why is French one of the languages?
It has been part of Eurovision since the beginning, and because there is no official language of Europe. And besides English, which acts as a lingua franca, there are lots of French speakers in Europe. So it's more or less because of that history.
Very cool.
So why did you want to develop and teach this course? So why is Eurovision interesting?
We met doing our PhD program in Umeå, and some of us have been watching Eurovision for a long time. Some of us, like me, started when they moved to Sweden. And by watching Eurovision together, we really noticed that there was something interesting there happening with language. And we think this isn't like this happens at Eurovision particularly, but this happens to every mega events. Mega events like the Olympics, for example, are a way to try and project a certain image of a country, for example. So there is a lot of discourse going on there. When it comes to the Eurovision, the language aspect is very, very clear. So we have, as Paulette said, we have language choices. So for in which language does a country decide to sing? Do they use minority languages? Do they use only the most common languages in the country? And how is language used, for example, to give a certain image of a country or to position the artist and the country when it comes to sexual identity, gender identity, and sexual orientation? Also, how are metaphors used in the songs that participate in the Eurovision? So we think there are a lot of layers of things happening in language during the Eurovision. And we thought, why not? Why should we keep pop culture somehow isolated from the academic world? We think it's very good to mix them and to use academic tools to analyze pop culture. And it's a good way to teach linguistics by using as an example something that is very fun and that people love in general.
It was one way for us to trick new students into linguistics in a way, because we had a lot of students that hadn't been studying linguistics before. So it was a really nice entry for them into the topic. And it was also, we came with this idea and we were like, this would be good as a summer course. It's fun, but it's serious. We can get students to the department. And then we were 4 PhD students and we were expecting to get a no for somewhere, like the head of the department or higher up. But everybody said yes. And they were try, do it. And I also think we are, of course, in Sweden, we get paid for the number of students we have on courses. So I think they also saw this is a good idea because of it can give us money at departments. But it is really nice that they have given us this opportunity to teach linguistics in this way.
It's very clever. The sort of sneakier courses that draws people in, they're always so popular. Yeah, it would never occur to me to do Eurovision only because I don't know enough about it, but 100% it makes total sense.
Yeah, so what topics do you cover in this course?
So we have 4 modules. The first module is on European language policies, and it is about language choices at the Eurovision stage, but it's connected to linguistic history of Europe. And that module is taught by Solveig Bollig, who is a PhD student in Nordic languages. Then we have the second module is multilingualism and minority languages that I'm teaching because that's closest to my research topic. That gives us how is multilingualism used at the Eurovision stage and which kind of space are minoritized languages given or not given at this stage. And then maybe you want to tell something about the other 2 modules, Martina?
Absolutely. The third module is the one that I'm teaching, and it focuses on how identity and specifically gender identity and sexual orientation and national and European identity are constructed through discourse in the Eurovision. So both on stage, but also off stage, for example, press conferences can be very interesting. So it's not only what happens on stage that is worthy to be studied somehow. And then we have the fourth module that is taught by Kaisa Torme, and she focuses on metaphor. And so how are metaphors used in the songs of the Eurovision and how they work? And by using the Eurovision songs, she tries and teach how metaphors work in the general language.
Can you talk a little bit more about like on-stage versus off-stage identity creation?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's like a super interesting topic. As you probably got from my bio, I work both at the Department of Language Studies and at the Center for Gender Studies. So gender is a big part of my project and of my education, like my research education. I think both national and European identity and queerness in general are constructed in a very interesting way when it comes to the Eurovision. We also see that they somehow combine. So we have, for example, when it comes to national identity, we have, first of all, the fact that the Eurovision is a contest where every entry represents a country. So there is this kind of play of like cheering for your country and hoping your country will win, and then see whether the other countries will vote and how many points they will give to your country. So the national identity is very important. But at the same time, it is the Eurovision. So it also implies some kind of European identity. But the fun thing is that we do not agree on what this European identity is, actually. We were talking about it the other day with Paulette. She's Dutch, I'm Italian. Probably our views of European identity are very different. And so I think it's very interesting to see how on the Eurovision stage, countries try to position themselves in and outside of the European identity. They try to come to terms with what European identity means. And this also combines with the topic of queerness. So we have a lot of, throughout the history of the Eurovision, we have a lot of performances that tried to play with the boundaries and with what means to be heterosexual or bisexual, or what it means to be cis or to be trans. So there are so many performances trying to work around this concept of queerness. And some of them have become like very, very important. So we have Dana International, for example, and more recently we have Conchita Wurst. But there are so many performances that have been dotting the history of the Eurovision, and they all tried to play with the concept of queerness. What is queerness? How do we define it? And what is normal anyway? So I really think it's very interesting, not only how these two concepts are translated on the stage, but also how they combine with each other. So how is like openness toward the LGBT community part of our national identity, or isn't it? So I think it's like all very interesting. Yeah.
Don't forget to mention last year's winner, Nemo, with the code was about their non-binary identity. So it can be, it's a more recent example.
So would you say that there are some countries that don't embrace that LGBTQ identity as much?
I think it's not that easy, I would say, in the sense that there are also performances that, in my view, have a very important queer subtext that have come that country where you maybe don't expect that. So I wouldn't say that there is like a very clear divide, like east-west or north-south. One example that I can give, for example, I'm in Sweden, and when Sweden hosted the Eurovision a few years ago, not the last time, like earlier, they actually, in their whole like opening ceremony, the topic of tolerance towards minorities was actually very big. So in that case, we see that Sweden tried to project a certain idea of themselves as an open, tolerant country. And so it comes also in play with maybe othering other countries. So which discourses are we trying to create, and which kind of image of Europe are we trying to give, and which is included in this Europe and which isn't?
Okay, so they all have their own opening ceremonies depending on where they hold it each year.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you say that they use these opening ceremonies as well to project what kind of identity?
Yeah, definitely.
I guess we do that with like Olympics and that kind of stuff as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Yes, that's definitely the parallelism that is often like cited also in studies about the Eurovision, that it works a little bit like the Olympics. So very common example is the contrast between Beijing 2008 and London 2012, and how both countries tried to kind of give a certain image of themselves also in combination, and like constructing your identity also by saying what you are not and what you are at the same time. So I will say it works a little bit like the Olympics. Yeah.
But with more language choices.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. No, I regret to say that I have not seen any Eurovision. I don't know if that's obvious already. So this is really helpful to kind of compare it to the Olympics. At least I'm really impressed by the scale then of Eurovision. It seems like it's quite a big deal.
It's such a big deal that people, well, on Twitter back in the day, probably it's all moved to Blue Sky, who were American, would talk about it. And I was always surprised when I would see Americans talk about it. But it has, in some circles, become a thing over here too in North America. So can we talk a little bit about how the ways that we're sneakily drawing in potential linguistic students into the field through Eurovision?
Yes, I think that many of our students have been Eurovision fans for a long time, or they have at least a connection to Eurovision. And they might have been watching Eurovision and discussing Eurovision, and they might have been thinking about like, why are songs not in countries' national languages anymore? Because that has been the case before. Eurovision have had pretty strict language rules in the past. When it started, it had a completely free choice of languages. And then in 65, Sweden came and all countries sung in one of their national languages. And they hadn't thought about that they needed language rules until Sweden in 65 submitted a song in English. And then they were like, oh shit, we need language rules because this is not okay.
Did you say 65? So it's been around that long?
Yes. It started in 56.
Wow. Okay.
So, and then we had like some years where they had like performance in one of the official languages of the country. And then thereafter, there were some years there was free language choice. There was in the 70s when we had, amongst other things, ABBA with Waterloo, who won. And then we had from 77 to 98, we had again that they have to sing in one of the national languages. Although we have these rules, but these rules they can be interpreted in different ways. So we have always had multilingual songs, as long as the majority of the song was in one of the national languages. And then we have, since 1999, we have free language choices again. So we have been seeing all kind of languages being present at this stage. It can be national languages, minoritized languages, classical languages. We have had ancient Greek and Latin. It can be Creole languages, immigrant languages, but we have also seen constructed languages. So our students have been seeing this, but they have maybe not been reflecting upon it and not been connecting it to linguistics. And then because of how we connected is because our course has 4 modules and each module had 3 lectures. And the first 2 lectures were like an introduction to linguistics on that specific topic. And then the 3rd lecture, we really applied it to the Eurovision Song Contest. So that was how we got them into linguistics.
So what constructed languages have been used?
It was completely made up languages. It was, amongst others, Belgium who started with it. And they came second with a song in 2006. And then the motivation that they gave also behind this song in a constructed language was Belgium has several official languages. And that year they wanted to submit a song in neither of their official languages. So then they came with a song in a constructed language. And they tried later on again, but then they weren't so successful. And the Netherlands also tried once, which was when I was a child. And I can still really remember that I listened and that I was like, oh, this is fun. And this is something that I don't know, but it's still fun. So they also didn't do so well.
That's interesting. I had no idea. That's amazing.
I just realized a big difference between American Idol, which I guess would be kind of like a similar thing, but not to the same scale. And Eurovision is the Eurovision songs are written by these people. These are original songs.
No, they are not necessary.
Oh,
yes, they are written for the Eurovision Song Contest, but not necessary by the one performing.
Okay, but
they are most often written by a whole team.
Oh, okay.
But they're
new,
so
right? So like in American Idol, we have cover songs and people sing. Yeah.
No, that's not allowed in Eurovision.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a very different kind of singing contest.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it's not only singing, because the performance also counts really, really strong. Maybe rather than the quality of singing.
Yes.
You said since 1999, it's been free choice, so they can do it in any language. Have there been some controversial choices since then when using minoritized languages?
Maybe not so much common some minoritized languages. I think they have always been embraced at the Eurovision stage. But what we have seen is that, for example, when France wanted to submit a song in English, that like people in French, they were like, but it's an honor to present France, and then you have to sing a song in French. So there have been that kind of discussions about the language choices.
Because it is so deeply tied to national identity.
Exactly. And especially the Roman countries, they have always, or not always, but they have most often sent songs in one of their national languages.
Yes.
But I also think because minority languages, they are so connected to, when it comes to Europe, they have a really strong status because of European legislation. So I think that also because of that, Eurovision also has like embraced minoritized languages.
That's fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
So what does Eurovision tell us about European identities? You talked about it a little bit, but maybe flesh that out a bit.
Probably that we all talk about it, but no one really knows what it is. Somehow we see so many different interpretations of it. We see that there are some kind of borders running like across Europe and like maybe dividing what is considered as like true European identity and what is instead considered as someone who just like tagging along. But this is also like only a view. There are so many different interpretations of what it means to be European and which values are associated with Europe. So I think it's like a question we still don't know the answer of, and maybe we will never know it, because that's also part of maybe European identity. Part of it is also that we really don't know what European identity is, and every one of us describes it in a different way. And I think this really comes up a lot on the Eurovision stage. So we had a lot of controversies, for example, when it comes to Eastern European countries. So we had a few editions in Eastern European countries that were also framed in a certain way as somehow being an exception, as somehow being editions that were not fully European, that were not like embracing what Europeanness actually means. So there was also this divide, I would say, between East and West. At the same time, we had a performance from Eastern European contestants trying to position themselves as part of Europe, of the European identities. So I see this as a constant pull and push somehow, where everyone tries to find their own place inside of Europe and tries to define what Europe is for them. But at the same time, this is always a question without a clear answer. So it's just like trying to give your own interpretation again and again on the stage. And I think that's very interesting.
And for example, the Dutch entry of last year with Joost Klein, it was called Europapa. It was about European identity in a way. And he used a lot of different European languages, but they were all Western European languages. So it was like a certain kind of European identity that was like framed there.
Yes, exactly. And also, the opening ceremony of Sweden that I was talking earlier about, I think it was 2013 or 14, but it was like the edition right after a number of editions that took place in Eastern Europe. And part of the discourse around the opening ceremony of like the Swedish edition was also the idea that somehow Eurovision was coming back home. And so this also highlights a certain view of Europe, like Europe ends at a certain point, and what is beyond it is not actually European somehow. And I think it's very interesting how we try to constantly like redesign the border of this concept of Europe and European identity.
And I assume it's at least partially related to the Cold War, Russia being, we don't want to, yeah. So some of the European countries are like formerly associated with Russia and now they're in the West. Is that part of the tension?
Yes, definitely. And I think Eurovision is really radicated in European history, how we came to be the Europe that we are now and how we see ourselves. So I would say that there is a heritage that also comes from the Cold Wars and comes from a lot of historical moments that shaped Europe in what is now expressed in the Eurovision.
How about other kinds of identities? What does your vision tell us about whatever identity you think is important or interesting to talk about here?
Well, as someone in gender studies, of course, I would say my focus, and in my module, I've focused a lot on queerness. And I would say there is a strong association between the queer community and the Eurovision. The queer community is like a very strong fan base for the Eurovision. And I think it's always very hard when people ask why, because I think it's very hard to ask ourselves, why are we attracted to a certain type of media? Why do we follow certain things? What many scholars have been saying is that Eurovision somehow gives you the possibility to manifest some kind of national pride without the very heteronormative subtext that is usually associated with expressing national pride. So that may be an answer. What we can definitely see is that Eurovision has often played with a very camp aesthetic. And we know that this is also something like pivotal in queer cultures. So I can see these overlapping. And as I was saying earlier, I think the queer community really shaped also which kind of performances find their place to the Eurovision stage. So we have so many performances trying to work with the concept of queerness, but also with the concept of gender identity, what it means to be a man, what it means to be a woman, what it means to be non-binary, for example, in the case of Nemo last year. So we have like a history of many performances, some of them, I would say, also kind of like a breakthrough for the time in which they were actually taking place. I will say there is here too a constant push and pull with the concept of gender identity and sexual orientation. So we have, on one hand, as I was saying, some performances that could be defined as revolutionary for their time. At the same time, we also have performances that instead try to manifest a more traditional view of what is feminine, what is masculine. So I will say it's something that is always there on the stage, and then it can be interpreted in very different way. And the way gender identity and sexual orientation are interpreted on the stage is also connected to what I was saying before about national identity. So I would say they constantly cross each other and connect each other.
And then we also have linguistic identities that are performed on this stage. And for example, you can show your identity by the use of multiple languages. And we have seen that, for example, the Netherlands in 2021, we had a song, it was in English, but it had parts of the song in Suriname-Congo, which is one of the languages of Suriname, a former colony of the Netherlands. And we also see that in, for example, songs that use immigrant languages of the country. We had in 2011, I think Norway had a song which was partly in Swahili. So we see that like linguistic identity is also something that can become visible through language choices on this stage. And that is also something which is really interesting. And it's not the only form of multilingualism that we see on this stage. Multilingualism on the Eurovision stage can have different motivations, but it's one of the motivations for having a multilingual song.
So do we normally see when it's multilingual, would the case normally be that they use the national languages, like multiple national languages, or are you seeing more and more immigrant languages being used?
Immigrant languages are not that often the case, but what we most often see is that it's a combination of English and one of the national languages of the country. And then most often with the chorus in English, so that it's easy to sing along for the audience. So that is something that we see most often.
Okay.
But on the same time, we see nowadays, the last couple of years, we see more and more often a more like translanguaging way of multilingualism in Eurovision songs. It's not so divided anymore that it has the chorus in English and the rest in one of the national languages. We see more and more code switching between words in the same sentences, one sentence in, for example, the Dutch song this year, one sentence in French, one sentence in English, and it goes that way throughout almost the whole song. So we see more and more another view on multilingualism as well.
Wow. I'm just
Fun.
thinking about how the talent of actually singing one French sentence and then one English sentence and going back and forth, like it takes a nice grasp of both languages to do that.
Yes.
Does each country only have one applicant? Is that okay?
Yes.
How do they get chosen?
That differs between countries. For example, here in Sweden, we have several national selections, or it's one national selection, but we have like several evenings in January and February that we have a big show in one of the largest cities in Sweden with like several participants where people are chosen to go to the finals, and then we have the finals. So that is how participants are chosen here in Sweden. But for example, in the Netherlands, there is like a committee. I have no clue who is part of this committee, and they just decide someone. And it differs between countries, but maybe Sweden has like the most extensive, and maybe Italy as well.
Italy, actually, we have one contest, but it is squeezed in like 4 days. So something that really surprised me when I came to Sweden was that the process of the Melody Festival and to actually decide who's going to Eurovision is pretty long. It takes like many more weeks than we do. We just like have 1 week and it's like concentrated in 1 week.
And then then the applicant is chosen, and then there's a committee that works on the song for that applicant, for that specific applicant.
It depends per country. Here in Sweden, they participate with a song in the contest, and it's that song that it's going to Eurovision. I think that is the case for most countries with like national pre-selections. And for example, the Netherlands, there is first chosen an artist, and then there is chosen a song. So it depends per country. And there are also countries, for example, this is often the case in Iceland and Denmark, where in the national selections, they're singing in Danish and Icelandic, while the song will be translated to English for the Eurovision.
I'm just thinking about like
That's very fun.
America and how boring our I'm just thinking about like American Idol. Like we don't have multilingual, like multilingualism is not celebrated here the way it is in Europe. This is really impressive to me that there's so many languages that are celebrated and that minoritized languages are even celebrated.
That's part of the European identity.
Yeah, to be multilingual. So in European countries, is it the case that most of the time there is a national language or two, a couple of national languages? Because we just got a national language in the US. And so this is new to us, but it's not new to European countries.
No, not at all.
No, it's pretty normal around the world
to have a national language. Yeah.
Yes.
to have at least have an official language or multiple official languages.
Yes.
Yeah, and then like in the case of Italy, for example, you have a number of minority languages that are protected by law.
But they're not necessarily the official languages?
It's like a different status, I would say. They are minority languages and they are like officially named. So like the law has to protect them somehow. But I wouldn't call them national languages probably.
Okay.
But it can be the case that minoritized languages are a national language. For example, in Norway, where the Sami languages are equal to Norwegian.
Wow. That's really amazing. I'm just like,
oh, Megan.
I'm so impressed by Europe, especially right now.
The practice is not always that perfect, I can say.
Yeah.
No,
But
no.
on paper, there is a lot of good intentions.
Yes. Yeah, it's almost all just on paper, but it's better than, the United States where there's nothing basically, or very little. I shouldn't say there's nothing because, in Alaska, that's a state that has official language status for, I can't even remember how many indigenous languages, but yeah, it's not all dire.
Yeah.
So speaking of indigenous or minoritized languages, how often are they used in Eurovision?
I don't have any statistics about this, but maybe once or twice every 5 years
Oh,
when it comes to minoritized and indigenous languages.
and it's just like it's not necessarily a certain country. It could be different countries that are using them.
It's different countries in general.
Okay.
Yeah.
And most often it's not a whole song in the minoritized languages, but it's most often a multilingual song. Although we also have examples where the whole song was in the minoritized languages. For example, a couple of years ago, France sent a song in Breton. And that was completely in Breton.
Cool. What is your favorite Eurovision song ever?
For me, I think it's actually this year's entry for Sweden.
Oh,
I think it's my favorite. Kai's Bara Bara Bastu.
All right.
Yeah.
wow.
It's also a very special year this year for Sweden, because Sweden is one of the countries that have always used the language policy of Eurovision to be able to sing in English whenever it was possible. So since 1999, Sweden has no longer, or 1998 was the last time, but since 1999, Sweden has sent songs in English. This will be the first year that they sent a song in Swedish, and it's not Swedish spoken in Sweden, but it's Finland Swedish spoken in Finland, and then also a very specific dialect of that. So that is really fascinating. And it's also a really nice example of how Eurovision songs can teach the general audience in Europe something about languages, because even they participated here in Sweden in the national selections. But a lot of Swedes, they weren't aware that much that Finland Swedish is not the way Finnish people speak Swedish, but it is the mother tongue of a lot of 300,000 people about that in Finland. And that is also a way of like teaching people about language. So that is really fun.
I love that.
Yeah, that's very cool. What about you, Paulette? Do you have a favorite song?
I think it's Estine with De Diepte. It was the Dutch entry a couple of years ago, and it was in Dutch, and it was just a beautiful song.
Okay, very cool.
Okay, we'll have to find both of them.
Yeah.
Do you remember the year?
2023 or 2022?
Okay, I'll find it.
Not that long ago.
I really should know more about Eurovision. I mean, Celine Dion went one year.
Really?
So
Yes.
I think on behalf of Switzerland.
Yes.
Is she Swiss?
Well, she's Quebecois, but I guess she's got Swiss ancestry.
Okay.
Maybe.
You don't need to have the nationality of the country you're participating for.
Oh.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
That's good to know.
For example, the people that are competing for Sweden this year, they're actually Finnish. And the people that were competing for Sweden last year, they were actually Norwegian.
Wow. Oh.
How do the Swedes feel about that?
Yeah.
I mean, there are a lot of jokes about it right now.
I bet. Are there any topics that we didn't ask you about that you would like to tell our listeners about?
Maybe the thing that Eurovision it's marketed and presented as an apolitical event, and countries are not allowed to have political entries, while Eurovision is highly political, especially what we already talked about when it comes to language choices and identity choices related to Eurovision. And that is something that has always been at the stage. And in 1980, Norway sent a song partly in North Sami. And that was like at the height of the Alta protests in Norway, which were a really important point for the Sami population there, where they got a lot of rights and so on. At that moment, they sent a song partly in North Sami about North Sami identity. So we have always seen this kind of very political entries. Jamala for Ukraine.
Exactly.
I can think about Czechia also. A couple of years ago, they sent a song called My Sister's Crown, and the song could be read both as an anthem for female solidarity, but also as an anthem for solidarity between Eastern European countries. And this is very clear in the text. So it's it's always there. It's always something that artists try to play with. You try to test the boundaries, maybe how much you can say and what you cannot say.
Yeah. It's always funny when we try to say, no politics, no politics. Like,
is that even possible?
Is it possible?
It's basically not impossible.
Exactly.
Like, you show me a video of a bunch of kittens running around. Okay, maybe that's not political, but everything else. Well, this has been really fascinating. I definitely learned a lot.
Yeah, me too.
As I knew I would, because my knowledge of Eurovision is very limited. Like, yeah, the ABBA thing, the Ukraine entry, etc.
Yeah, I learned a lot
So,
too.
yeah.
I haven't even seen an episode, which I should, or an episode. I guess that's what they're called. I don't know what they're called.
No.
A contest
event? I don't know.
I haven't seen any of them before. Oh, this is really, truly fascinating and a lot of fun to talk about. And we really appreciate you coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for having us.
And we always give our listeners the one final message. Don't be an asshole.
Don't be an asshole.
The Vocal Fries podcast is produced by me, Carrie Gillen, theme music by Nick Granum. You can find us on Tumblr, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Vocal Fries Pod. You can email us at vocalfriespod@gmail.com, and our website is vocalfriespod.com.